What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's Wednesday, so we're drafting. We're talking a little bit of best ball. Joining with me today, very special guest, Davis Peng. Peng's picks. I'm not sure if you're writing anymore, but I know you're doing a lot with Hope on her channel, Hope Bishop. I'll probably reach out to her to come on the show at some point as well, but I gotta space you guys out a little bit. But but
Yeah,
I know you're doing a lot with her and very active on Twitter. So just give the people a quick shout out, what you're all about. Again, I don't know if you're writing anymore, but if you are, plug away.
sure. Yes, I still do a show with me and Hope do a show together called The Road to 150. The concept is about maxing out, right? Like put in 150 tournaments, 150 drafts, talking strategy, watching our opinions change and do what we do for the year. I've had my opinion already change like 4 times throughout the season. We're not even in July yet. Oh God. I still write. I did write a best ball strategy guide for beginners. I did my part two actually last night, so the part two will come out. It talks about diminishing returns and overall what your roster will look like. It gives very small examples, but it gives very strong ones. So like one thing I talk about is like contribution rates and contribution points. So that article does come out sometime this week. And I also do a golden ticket show, which is basically just me like ranting for like 45 minutes about this and that and why I hate this guy or why I like this guy or why you need to draft like this and stuff like that. So
Where can the people find that stuff?
all that will be on Fantasy Six Pack. That's where I started my writing with. That's probably where I will end my writing with. They've been great dudes. They give me the best chance to stretch my best ball legs when nobody was doing best ball content. I've been writing since BBM 1. And it's held well, a lot, and I'm glad to see this, space grow. This space was not a thing 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't even really know about it until BBM 2, Best Ball Mania 2 area. Just before that, I got in maybe, in Best Ball Mania 2, I probably got in like maybe 40 drafts or something like that. Last year, obviously, quite a bit more in the hundreds. This year, I'm at about 250 total roughly right now. So it's a kind of an addiction that gets injected to your veins pretty quick. So yeah, it's definitely blown up, that's for sure. So looking
It feels
forward.
kind of like a gotcha game at times too. You're always
Yeah,
like, if I draft again, maybe I'll get 101. If I draft again, maybe I'll get a 101.
yeah,
Or
and
maybe if I
then
draft this time, I'll get a really weak room. Something
yeah,
along those lines.
if you leave a draft, it's like, are you sure this might be the one?
It really does feel like a giant gotcha game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no doubt.
I've been doing a lot of this right now, and I get it, dude. Like my first year in BBM, well, my first year was on drafters, draft champions. But BBM 1, I only did 20 entries, and then in year two for BBM 2 and etc., I probably did like I think I did total of 20 entries across that year one, but B2 did a couple hundred, and then last year I did like 700 and like 70 teams. And at that point, I have to like tell myself like this isn't normal. I know it's not normal.
Yeah, it's a typical trajectory of a classic best ball addict. That's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at, but we'll see. I'm starting to be a little more choosy with my entries, and I've still yet to max out a 150, and I don't know if I will, to be honest, with the amount of contests that are being released constantly. I'm not even going to draft this Chihuahua. I'm really not. I'm just going to wait till the next puppy or the next poodle or the next whatever
Yeah.
and kind of take it from there. Maybe a little higher stakes stuff. I maxed out the Dalmatian three
Okay.
max. So higher dollars, less entries, that sort of a
Less
thing.
variance makes sense
Yeah,
too.
exactly,
You talk
exactly.
about
Different
4 out of 12.
little bit of different strategies in those as well, with 4 advancing out of the first round sort of thing. You just basically want to advance. You basically want to be top 4, and then you made your money back and see what happens.
Yeah,
So
top four is great. I think it's very doable for the majority of guys on Twitter. And I guess that shout out to Twitter Space for this. Like you guys are way better than you think. You
yeah,
are way ahead of the curve more than you think. I can tell you about how many 3 elite quarterback teams I've seen already since I've been drafting. So like we're way above 3 quarterback elite teams. So like Twitter's been crushing it. I think they're gonna clean house this year. It's gonna be
yeah.
gross.
Oh yeah. But let's dip into this. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on. It's good to have you on. Good to meet you in person finally. We've been connected on Twitter for a while, but let's dig into this. So what we're doing today, we're looking at some players' ADP where they currentently sit, and then we're going to discuss if they have some value at their current ADP, and then potentially where we see that value going up to. So we'll start off with the only kind of first round talent. It's hard to find value in the first round. It really is, and the picks are so close, right? You're not reaching ever unless you're taking a guy, 19, 20 ADP, 22 ADP in the first round.
Yeah.
But there can still be some value there. And in my opinion, Austin Eckler is still a pretty big value for where he's going. He's going after AJ Brown,
CMC.
on Diggs, Travis Kelsey, obviously after CMC and Cooper Cup. I see value in Austin Eckler up till about pick 5.5 roughly, above Kelsey, below Cooper Cup. That's kind of where I see him ultimately probably like kind of landing or having value until he's had 300 plus points in the last 2 years, 18 points more than Josh Jacobs on 82 less touches, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Less injury concern than CMC that goes, 4 picks ahead of him. You got the money to make him happy for this season with the Chargers. And Kellen Moore comes in, who, the quote, and I'll say this again for another player we're going to talk about in a second here. Kellen Moore wants to light up the scoreboard. He's not necessarily concerned about winning football games. If we're talking about fantasy football, if we're talking about best ball especially, sign me up for that. So with him coming in, and he's led a Kellen Moore offense has led the league in yards in 2 of the 4 years he's with the Cowboys, including his first year as an offensive coordinator. So him coming over to the Chargers, this being his first year, I'm not concerned about that. But that's just my opinion. Davis, where you at on Austin Eckler and his value?
Man, Austin Eckler is always a value every year. So, and it's weird. It's not like it's a given. It's one of those things that like every year, some ways I see it a ton. Myself included. I'm all like, I don't know if Austin Eckler can repeat. I'm not really in on him. He's a little small, or he's a little older, or man, it's really hard to catch 90 passes a year, right? And what does he do? All of the above and more, like and then more, and so it's so goofy. I don't think I take a lot of Eckler, and it's not because of Eckler per se. The FUD, I was kind of done with the FUD a while ago. He's definitely a buy, but it's super hard with wide receivers this year. I feel like whenever I don't take a wide receiver and I'm taking a running back, I think Eckler is at least lucky that he's at the butt end, so you can kind of navigate your way through the drafts. It's tough. Like you take Eckler, and then if you happen to be in the piss yellow rooms, then you're like, you can't take a second running back. And I sometimes don't like that. I don't like the feeling of being like forced to be unable to do something. But like Eckler, like straight up, sign me up. I mean, what's his worst case scenario? Like he doesn't get 1,000 rushing, then like, sure. But do you think we get less than 12 to 1,400 scrimmage yards? I don't think so. I think his floor is probably 1,200, 1,400 scrimmage yards, which is better than like Jalen Waddle, whose peak is probably 1,300 yards. Probably better than CeeDee Lamb, whose peak is probably 1,200 yards. Probably better than Devontae Adams, who we are all scared with Jimmy G. And to top it off, Austin Eckler is a great week 17. Mike Williams doesn't know how to land on his feet still, so we're good there. We know that injury's coming. So like he's gonna get his receptions. He's going to be the guy at some point.
Yeah, and he's got a good potential to lead the league again in touchdowns, which he did last year, and ultimately that's what matters. So people and rightfully so, you want to be selecting the touchdown upside running backs, not the pass catching third down type of running backs, right? It's only PPR, but with Austin Eckler, you get all of that. You get the upside, you get the half point PPR points. Rush yards, yes, are a little bit down, but again, with that touchdown upside, I don't really care. And again, with Kellen Moore coming in, yeah, sign me up for that run and gun offense.
And
So
and the last thing too, people always talk about how Rashawn Slater being out hurt Justin Herbert, but like it
yeah,
also hurt Austin Eckler. Like, so
100%.
it's a win-win either way. I think in the thing about first round overall, like first round picks, which is you're gonna be your first overalls, all right, is that you want someone that's consistent. We don't, we fade some guys, right? We get it right, but most of the time we get it wrong. There's a lot of people who faded Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, all these other guys, and And it didn't technically work in your favor if you faded Derrick Henry. It did not work in your favor if you faded, Devontae Adams with Derek Carr. It didn't work in your favor. It's the first rounds are the hardest guys to fade because you cannot guarantee that they will even produce. Like a JT, the consensus. So
101 last year
yeah,
consensus. Yeah.
like
And he
everybody
let,
was like, so
yeah. Yeah, I think he was the 101. Like he was where Justin Jefferson's at right now last year. So,
yeah.
yeah, there's some value there, I think, in the first round. And then we'll stick with a teammate, Justin Herbert. Huge value, in my opinion. QB7 right now, ADP 54.6. I'm seeing value with him all the way up to be honest, this might shock some people, but I see value up to about 32 roughly, pick 32, ADP 32, which is above Lamar Jackson. That would make him QB4. So a couple things about Herbert, 395 points in 2001. And again, I touched on it earlier. Kellen Moore comes to town now, who doesn't care about winning games. He wants to throw up points. Sign me up for that quarterback. That was the fourth most points out of any quarterback for the last 2 seasons. So that includes Jalen Hurts, who goes ahead of him. That includes one out of Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, Josh Allen had 2 of those seasons. Health has always been an issue, like you touched on as well with the Chargers. It's just something in the water, it seems, with the Chargers. There's
I
always,
I
even back to San Diego,
I got
always
made
been
fun of
problems.
for this when I said that I think their medical staff is probably like the worst in the league. Somebody,
I,
someone was like, "You, how do you protect medical stats?" I was like, you don't have to. Just look at their history of like Tyrod Taylor getting punctured lungs, like all their corners, all their receivers, all their old linemen always go missing every single season. I don't think I've ever seen a healthy Chargers roster since like 2014.
yeah, since like
And,
basically Phillip Rivers, Gates, and LT, that kind of era.
like
After
2010
that,
then.
yeah, yeah, like after that, it was ridiculous that they every single year they would have guys, and it's still to this day, every
Yeah.
single year they have a guy who goes down for the entire season.
Jason
Include
Verrett, Brandon
yeah,
Flowers, like all
Keenan
these guys.
Allen at one point. It
Keenan
was
Allen for like 3 years straight, like
early in
was
his
just
career. Yeah,
kicking hurt. So maybe
yeah.
there's something in their medical staff, like whatever it is, their trainers are not getting it done.
I fully agree, and I've been saying that a little bit to be, as well. So, but yeah, above Joe Burrow, I'm okay with that, considering what you see behind me. Lamar Jackson. There's the thing about Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. The injury concern is there, and you can't really tell me that their ceiling is any higher than Justin Herbert's realistically. Again, he
Yeah.
threw up 395 points 2 years ago. Health was a concern for him last year. Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer, all the offensive line was kind of in shambles. Even Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Obviously, we just touched on their injury histories, but you can't say that he doesn't have that potential to throw up a 400-point season, because he's shown that he does. And you could certainly make the argument, which is what I'm doing right now, that his situation has improved with Kellen Moore coming in and a first-round wide receiver, Quentin Johnston, who was my personal wide receiver 1 in this class. So
Yeah.
yeah, sign me up for all the. I mean, his price is steadily, going up, and his ADP is going down, I should say. But there's still some huge value here, in my opinion.
Uh, I'm not taking a ton of Herbert, and it's not because I don't believe in Herbert. It's kind of how the stacks come across from him is really tough. I'm also not like this king stack 'em all, but I find like it's really hard to get him. I've seen people kind of push really hard for Herbert these days that they're taking him over Burrow, like consistently along with his weapons, right? Keenan, Mike Dubs, Eckler, Palmer, even Jerome Everett, Quentin Johnson. It's just tough. I do think he has the ability to produce. I think rushing is just a little bit more consistent because with Justin Herbert, what killed him the most wasn't the yardage. He still threw up 4,700 yards. It was the touchdowns. When you go from 38, 40 touchdowns to like 20, mid 20s, you're just gonna not be good at fantasy. And I think that's what killed him a lot. And I do think he bounces back, right? You get your weapons back. You get QJ. That's a step above Josh Palmer, so you're never falling to that Palmer tier of desperation. But bad luck that he lost 2 of his guys actually, Keenan Allen plus Mike Dubs. So I do think he gets that 30-ish touchdown zone. He probably becomes our new Drew Brees, right? Like 4,500 to 5,000 yards, mid 30 to 40 touchdowns per season. But you're getting a toss up at TDs every year, and it's gonna be based on his weapon. This is actually what Drew Brees suffered from every year. Was like his weapons were just never consistently on the field. So Justin Herbert's probably in that boat. I do think he's worth it pick. I just think he's hard to grab because I see a lot of reaching on him these days. Uh,
Yeah.
but game stacks are amazing. He's a great player. I don't have any issues with someone taking him. I just haven't found myself able to take him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, and that's kind of what it boils down to a lot of times is team structure and where you're at in the draft, and not wanting to reach more than Hayden Winks put something out more than 12 picks past ADP, but the closer you get to the first, second, third, fourth round, it's really more like
I'll,
six,
I'll,
eight
I'll tell you
picks. You
this
don't want
much
to
though.
reach much more than that.
I'll tell you this much. I would rather grab Justin Herbert at 55 100% of the time than Trevor Lawrence at like 62 at his original ADP. Or now he's going to 66, 70, 80, whatever. But like
Mhm.
Justin Herbert just screams like much more upside than Trevor Lawrence as of right now,
Yep.
give or take the pass attempts, right? I do think Trevor Lawrence might be a better player in the future, 101, sunshine, all that stuff. But given what Justin Herbert's done, like 54 to like 62 on like Trevor Lawrence, it's not even a close bargain for me. I would just reach for Justin Herbert and figure out my team down the road.
Yeah, don't disagree with that. And certainly in a one-to-one, player for player, it's no question Justin Herbert,
Yeah.
especially like you kind of said right now. Maybe that'll change in the future, but certainly not right now. Another player, we'll move on to some running backs. This is a guy that I've been drafting a ton of lately. David Montgomery, RB26, 85.2 ADP right now, moves over from the Chicago Bears, stays in division with the Detroit Lions. For me, the way I'm looking at David Montgomery this year, I'm not looking at him as Jamal Williams. And if you are, that's a little silly and it's a little lofty to just throw those kind of, goals or numbers at this player because, he's the replacement. But I am looking at David Montgomery as last year Ezekiel Elliott as a floor, 8 to 900 rushing yards, 10 to 12 touchdowns. And that's kind of a floor. But he's going to catch the ball a little bit more. Obviously, not nearly as much as Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's going to catch the ball a little bit more because he averages 38 catches over the last, his 4 seasons in the league. I think and a lot of people have been saying this recently. I obviously didn't get this from anyone. I sent you this show sheet a few days ago, but
Yeah.
I think there's a good shot that he outscores Jahmyr Gibbs, especially in this half point PPR setting in Underdog Fantasy. Maybe in DK where it's full point PPR, it might be a little bit closer, but realistically, touchdowns are king in fantasy football and especially in best ball. So that's what I'm looking at. And the offensive line has never been better for him. The best offensive line he's ever had was last year, ranked 14th
Oh
in the league.
gosh.
Yeah, ranked 14th in the league by PFF. And Justin Fields ran for almost 1,150 yards, right? So he
Like
was,
that offensive line was so bad too. Like that's the best he's ever ran behind. That's
yeah.
so funny to me. I didn't even know
So
that.
last year 14th ranked. This is PFF rankings. Last year 14th, the year before that 22nd, the year before that 20th, and then his rookie year 25th. So he's always had a bottom half, bottom third offensive line. And the year he had a okay offensive line, Justin Fields goes nuts and runs for 1,150 yards, steals a bunch of
And
his touches, right?
I mean, we
So
can say that it's an okay offensive line, but it really wasn't, and the box was probably stacked beyond means, right? I tweeted this about and let's parlay a little bit to like my DJ Moore I was talking about with on the show yesterday. It's like they have no one to pass to. Like they had N'Keal Harry, Dante Pettis, and Equinus St. Brown. That was literally their roster on some of those games when they came into the game. They're like, hey,
yeah.
these are our 3 guys. Like they were straight up creative characters as your starting line, and of course you're not going to throw the ball more than 20 times. Of course you're going to have box stacked against you.
Mm-hmm.
Who like you're going to tell me that if you were a defensive coordinator, you'd be like, "Hey guys, we gotta pull these guys back. We got no."
Yeah.
They were stacking those boxes. David Montgomery never stood a chance. Top 14 O line probably was facing us 60% of the time or 50% of the time a stacked box.
More, yeah. First and second down was
Yeah.
probably 100%, and
There's probably guys on the bench waiting to come on the field and just smack them. There's no way.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So he's a guy that I'm looking at with huge value. I could see value with him all the way up to about pick 63, which puts him around that Alexander Madison, Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins. Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, those guys all have some question marks, right? So I think that again, if I'm thinking the floor is Zeke last year, then that should put him right in that range. So that's kind of where I'll take him all the way up until, or we'll see if he does get there, but I'll be taking him an absolute ton. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, pick 40, RB 14. I think that's a lofty target for him, but we'll see. So, anyways, my bold prediction, I guess it's not that bold anymore, is that Dave Montgomery outscores Jahmyr Gibbs.
Um, so I did a thing last year with Travis Etienne to Josh Jacobs, and I'm pretty sure I won that bet. But Travis Etienne was being drafted as like RB 16, RB 14 to 16 last year, around 3-4 turn. I made the comparison that Josh Jacobs being drafted at 60, 70, 80, who is perpetually RB 16 to 20 on his worst years, and on his best years, RB 8 to 12, was going double his picks. And the question was why? Right? Like if I'm paying RB 16 to get RB 14 numbers possibly, but I could pay RB 20 to get RB 12 to 16 numbers, like why wouldn't I do that? So Dan Montgomery's kind of reminds me of that situation. The only difference is these guys are on the same team of each other. But if
Yeah.
I have to ask myself, why would I pay double the ADP and almost double the position of positional picks, right? RB 26 versus RB 14 to get the same numbers. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
it. The only reason I would ever consider doing this is if I believe Gibbs takes over second half and that he just has that better week 17 game, right?
Yep.
But for the other 16 weeks, if I don't believe that, I agree with you. I'll take Montgomery.
Yeah.
Um, Touchdowns are king. He's never played a full season and he still gets 40 receptions per year. If he finds a way into a full season, that guy could get 50 receptions, 60 receptions, and could have 900 yards to 1,200 on scrimmage if they just run the ball, especially with the first 6 weeks when you don't have Jameson Williams and you might need to run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
trust Jared Goff to throw the ball.
Yeah. I think that's a big reason why they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs so high and brought in David Montgomery, right? So there you go. We'll move on to another quarterback here. This is a guy that you like. This is a guy that you want to talk about. Russell Wilson, QB 18, 132.3 ADP. So what's your pitch? Let's hear it.
So this is the flip side to like the Charger situation right now, right? Like you get to play the Charger week 17 right off the bat. If I get to get a stack, bro, hey, that's it. Like it's Russell. His bye weeks are great. He's bye week 9, so you're not really facing any good competition for his bye weeks. And to top it off, he's quarterback 18. He was a guy that was perpetually being drafted as quarterback 8, quarterback 9. And people are like, well, I got burned last year. I was like, because you drafted my quarterback 8, quarterback 9. He's never been that guy consistently. You're buying his second half season numbers and expecting that this will be season long. That's not the case. He's far from it. So his numbers are better. His offensive situation is better. The setup for this team is better. You no longer have Cortland Sutton out there being the guy. Cortland Sutton is not the guy. I get it. We love him. He's 6'4". We think he could be that person, but he's far from it. And if you watch this tape, he was bad. He couldn't break press. He couldn't do any of that. He was losing in a lot of coverages. But Jerry Jeudy is now the one. Jerry Jeudy had like an 85% catch per attempt with Russ at like 4 games. 3 out of 4 games, he was catching 85 of his targets, 85% of his targets. And it's not because Jerry Jeudy has the best hands in the world. It's because they trust him a lot more. So I think Wilson steps up. Wilson also can run the ball. He's losing a little bit of weight, still fast. He ran for 2 touchdowns last year at the end of the season. I do think we see a little bit of bump in the scrimmages. We're not going to get like 500 yards. We'll probably get like 300 yards, 2 to 4 touchdowns. You'll get probably 30 touchdowns on the season, and you're getting at quarterback 18. That's an amazing value, and you get a great week 17 bye. You get easy stack partners because his wide receiver goes at 41.95 and his tight end goes at 140, and you get the quarterback at 132. The spread of stacking these guys, there's no better value at the moment in my mind that you could get this at all.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm drafting a ton of Russell Wilson as well. And, they drafted second round Marvin Mims, the magnificent, marvelous, mad Marvin Mims, and then Dulcich from last year. So, and like you said, with the ADPs, is similar with Justin Herbert, in my opinion, because you can bring back, Quentin Johnston and Gerald Everett with Justin Herbert. But with Russell Wilson, even if you draft him naked, you can bring it back with Dulcich at, usually at a turn. You're like, oh man, I'm lost here. I have no quarterback. I went, 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers. Then you go Russell Wilson, Dulcich, or whatever it is at the time of the turn. You
Russell,
get what I'm
Dulcich,
saying?
Mims, and
And
you're
then
and you're
Mims,
set.
exactly. And then
And then you
there's your
bring
stack.
back Everett, and you're like stoked about it.
Yeah. So with both of these quarterbacks, you can draft them naked and then stack it later. And then you're still getting good value on those stacks and they're potentially unique. Right. So that's something I'm definitely doing with Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert a little bit, but more so with Russell Wilson for sure, because you can get him and Dulcich at a turn like that. And if you're kind of searching for a quarterback, and then you want to obviously bring some sort of stack with it, Russell Wilson's a target for that.
And then just the last part too, he fits almost every quarterback build. He fits elite quarterback builds because
Mhm.
you get draft an early guy, you draft Russ. He fits 2 mid-range quarterback builds. If you draft Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, you can still draft Russ. If you want to go late quarterback, you can still draft Russ as your one. Grab yourself a Stafford and like a Sam Howell. Like the ability to put him anywhere is what makes him so valuable, and that's why I think he's underrated. You can't take Patrick Mahomes and go, "I'm going to 3 quarterback build." Like you can't take Patrick Mahomes and even sometimes get a mid-range guy. So that's why I think Russ is like really good because he fits every build, and no one's ever going to sit there and say, "Well, Russ doesn't fit."
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I'm definitely targeting him a fair amount, and I'll keep targeting him up until, I don't know, up to the Geno Smith range at least. So one
Yeah,
10 roughly.
he's definitely
Um,
fitting up there, up into that range, the Jared Goff, Geno range easily.
Yeah, that's where I'm putting him or drafting him until he gets to, and we'll see what happens from there. Next guy, a couple more here. Devin Singletary. I think there's tons of value with Devin Singletary. RB 49 right now, ADP 154.2. I've got value for him all the way up until about pick 118, which puts him, in that. So we'll talk about this in a second as well. It puts him above Devin A. Chain, which is I have no clue how Devin A. Chain's ADP is at 119. That's insanity if you ask me. But above Elijah Mitchell, above Khalil Herbert, Jerick McKinnon, Kendre Miller, above all those guys. So that's where I've got him value up till. As far as why I'm taking him there, he's got legit 4 years of starting experience and production with a timeshare. He was always in a timeshare in Buffalo. He's going to be in at the very least a timeshare in Houston. He's going to be the pass catching back in that offense. If anything should happen to Dameon Pierce, which I think is completely plausible considering how hard Dameon Pierce runs the ball, and we saw him get hurt at the end of last year. He's averaged 168 attempts, 787 yards, and 4 touchdowns a season, with 48 catches, 242 yards. He's roughly averaged just over 216 touches, over 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns in his 4 seasons in Buffalo. For Houston, 77 vacated targets from running backs from, Rex Burkhead and Dario Ogumawale, and then 109 attempts. I would see all of that, at the very least, all of that going to Devin Singletary, plus the potential for more. So I got a ton of value on him. What's your thoughts?
I talked about Devin Singletary a lot on Big Board. When he got signed, when he was unsigned, etc. He was a pick 180, pick 190 guy. Pick 155 doesn't change anything for me. RB 49, like what are we doing? Like every year I have to hear about how Devin Singletary sucks. He sucks in comparison to Zach Moss. Oh, he sucks in comparison to Matt Breida. Oh, he sucks in comparison to James Cook. And guess what he's done? He's
800
been the
yards, 4
one
touchdowns.
He's been the one over all those guys and then some. And to be fair, I do think that James Cook is probably more efficient, probably a more spry booster, burstier kind of player. But Devin Singletary has not actually sucked. He's been productive for years now, as you said, right? 4 years. He's been the starter. He knows how to play. He's not a bad pass catcher. I have no idea why people think he's a bad pass catcher, but think Leonard Fournette's a good one. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So he's done well enough. He's made a career. He's probably going to be in the league for another 3 years as a 2, 3 Deontay Foreman type guy, but a little bit more skill set. Sign me up. I do think I am taking Dameon Pierce, but Dameon Pierce is also in those mid 60s, late 70s now, so it doesn't cost you anything either way. Give me Dameon Pierce in some hands. Give me Devin Singletary when I don't get Dameon Pierce. Both of those guys are going to eat they're probably the best weapons on their team because their wide receivers are not that good. Their tight end is probably the best receiving weapon, which is Dalton Schultz. Do you trust Nico? I like Nico. I push him all the time, but I don't trust him at pick 130. I don't trust
I haven't clicked him a single time, and I won't at that ADP. I'm not touching
rookie
him.
rookie quarterbacks are like absolutely terrible. I could not think of a good rookie quarterback season outside of Justin Herbert, right?
Russell Wilson's was
RG3,
okay. Dax was
but
okay.
but was it fantasy relevant good? Did he create just monster weapons, like monster fantasy seasons? The answer is
No,
no. Like none of them did, right?
no.
RG3 created a weapon for himself, and and weirdly enough, Alfred Morris, and then Justin Herbert was like that's it. Even Andrew Luck's rookie year wasn't good.
Mhm.
So when the weapons are subpar and the offensive line is okay enough but better run blockers, give me the double running backs at cost at value because they're going to give you that flex point every week.
Yeah, defensive coach as well. So yeah, I'm going to be drafting him a ton. I think he's my most owned running back, and he'll continue to be as long as his value stays where it's at. So we'll see how it goes. But kind of playing off that, how I was shitting on Devin A-Chain there. You want to talk about the Dolphins running backs? You're a Dolphins fan, I just learned. So give me the skinny on who I should be drafting here.
I take them both. I so the way I was talking
By
about
both, do you
how
mean Jeff
I'm
Wilson and Raheem Mostert?
Raheem Mostert, I'm taking them both. They cost you literally nothing. So this is something I thought about earlier today, and I'll probably re-quote myself in the future. It's last year when people were Dalvin Cook was a starter, he was a round one guy. Where was Alexander Madison going?
I want to say like 140-ish, 130-ish.
120 to 130,
Yeah.
right? So in the event that Dalvin Cook finds his way into Miami land, why do we care that these? Why are we so afraid of two running backs at 180? Like, do we think that, so the argument always was, well, Dalvin Cook will get injured. And then that's when Alexander Madison will come on in and dominate. Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert have proven they're both better running backs than Alexander Madison. They have. They have both proven it. They've consistently been able to handle multiple loads, come in and be awesome running backs. So if we were willing to take Alexander Madison at like 130 last year, we should be slam dunking the 180s for Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And here's to top it off. If Dalvin Cook doesn't even show up, which is likely the case at this point, then you just got two back-to-back committee guys that we know are going to be the dudes there for 180. So you literally don't lose anything either way for taking them both, and you basically gain everything either way. So you gain at least some flex exposures. 1 week it might be Mostert, 1 week might be Wilson with Cook. Fine, whatever. We saw the 49ers do this plenty of times. And guess who's their head coach? The former 49er offensive coordinator. Like, so if the excuse is I could take Madison at 130 every year because Dalvin Cook will get injured, then great. You got two guys at 180 now. Like it
Yeah.
just, and to top it off, the weapons have to back up. That line's not going to be stacked. They're not going to sit there and go, well, Tyreek Hill's here, so I better play press man coverage on him. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, those two running backs combined for over 1,700 rushing yards. The majority of that production came with the Dolphins. And the craziest thing about this whole thing is Devin Achane's going, 50 points above Mostert and 60 above Wilson. That's absolute madness to me. I think the concern for the two players, for Mostert and Wilson, with the potential Dalvin Cook coming in, is you don't want to be wrong, which is like, who cares? Just draft like you're right and sprinkle in a little bit of both. I have sprinkled in a little bit of those both of those players, not a ton, that's for sure, because I just don't love it all around. But I have
But
sprinkled in Mostert and Wilson, and I have not touched A-Chain not once, and I
yeah,
won't, not even close at that ADP. So yeah, I agree with what you're kind of laying down. I still am not really clicking a ton of Mostert or Wilson personally, but I can definitely see, especially if you want to draft both of them. Like I almost like that idea better than anything, is just super late, just bang bang drop both of those running backs, and then like you said, you've got the running back in Miami at the end of the day.
and you're gonna
So
get that most likely. And I can relate it to like any other combo situation where we've had ambiguousness, right? Like imagine if Devin Singletary and Zach Moss were the 180 guys, right? I used to double tap those guys at 120 when they were together, and it was like, hey, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm gonna do it. Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. I don't really know who's the guy there, but whatever. They cost me 120, 140, right? Now you got two of these guys at 180.
yeah.
That's totally fine with me. Like I feel like you have a chance to sure lose what value, but there's not many round, 17, 16, 15 running backs there that I'm like, these are surefires. Like there we go. Like that's the guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no doubt. So yeah, no, I definitely could see where you're coming from there. Last but certainly not least, I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here because this is my guy, wide receiver 91, pick 210.4 and ADP. Terrace Marshall Jr. I'm gonna stand up on my soapbox here. I got value for Terrace Marshall. I'll take him all the way up to about 175. That's round 14, 15. That's to me, I don't really give a shit who you take in those rounds. If you believe in them and you have have conviction, there's no reaching. Just take who you like and take them where you like them. Obviously, if you can get them as late as possible, do it. I'm pushing 50% with Terrace Marshall right now, exposure in about 150 drafts. And I'm going to keep drafting them. I'll have 80% exposure for all I care if everything stays the same. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. 4.38 40 time. He's got those X receiver, alpha receiver traits that we look for. Couple little things that people may or may not know. He was number one in NFL last year in go routes in minimum of 10 targets. Number one in the NFL, 14.43 yards per route run on go routes. 145.8 passer rating on go routes. 202 yards, caught 7 of his 10 targets, 202 yards. So he had that's what we're looking for in fantasy football. That's why, Chris Olave goes as high as he does right now because of his high ADOT and, he has potential for that big play. That's exactly what we have with Terrace Marshall here. Adam Thielen comes in. He'll be 33 years old when the season starts. He hasn't exactly been, the picture of health. He played a full season last year, except for I think he missed one game, but whatever. But either way, I'm not super concerned about Adam Thielen. DJ Chark, he's literally never played an entire season. He's never suited up for every game an entire season, literally never. Then Jonathan Mingo getting drafted. Sure, I like Jonathan Mingo. I don't mind him at all. I'm not going to shit on Jonathan Mingo over here. But for me, he profiles more of a slot receiver, which isn't going to take touches and targets away from Terrace Marshall.
he's also going 80 picks earlier.
Exactly. And all the camp buzz that's coming out, the head coach, everybody is backing Terrace Marshall. Everyone is talking him up. Everyone is saying, beat writers, coaching staff, everybody is saying that he's poised for a big role, big boost. 490 yards last year. Yeah, I get it. He's struggled to start his career, but he has progressed. He has improved every year, since he came into the league. And with that big play potential, yeah, give me that every single time in the 18th round, because that's where I'm clicking them every single time, unless I have, two Panthers for whatever reason. But yeah, I'll have 70% Terrace Marshall by the end of the summer if this continues, because to me it's blasphemy. Start drafting Terrace Marshall. What are your thoughts?
It's funny that you say that. So when I saw the list and he was on there, I laughed because I was like, I've been actually drafting more Terrace Marshall lately. I have. It
Good.
cracks me up because so Terrace Marshall, Mingo, I like them more than Thielen and Shark. I'm not a Shark guy. Like, I got bit by that Shark news and when he was a Jag, like, oh, Shark's the guy, blah blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, he looked great. But like, what can Shark actually do? What routes does he run?
Yeah,
When you watch
ghost.
him, yeah, he just runs post routes, posts, nines, fades. That's it. That's all he knows how to do, and he's not even that good at it. Right?
Yeah.
He has to be like the distraction guy where like everyone else kind of got things tied up and he gets lost in the field and running out there. He's kind of like a
He's
crap
MVS. He's MVS.
MVS would I would say MVS is better because MVS breaks off
If DJ
more.
Chark stayed healthy, he's MVS.
I think which is bad because I'm not an MVS guy. I would say MVS breaks more coverages. Like he actually can actually outburn people. Shark doesn't generally burn people. He kind of reminds me of there was another guy that was very similar to that. He's like a Van Jeff, but worse. He's like a crappier Van Jefferson, right? Like he gets lost in the backfield. He's getting there. He's a crappier Nelson Aguilar. Like so, I'm not. I think Nelson Aguilar would be a better player than this. And Nelson Aguilar has proven that he's better than a DJ Shark, consistently better.
Yeah,
So
Chark's just a bit of a field stretcher for me. Like he opens
exactly,
up, like you're alluding to, he opens it up for the middle of the field for everyone else.
yeah.
So
So give me Mingo, give me Terrace. I think Terrace is going to do some work. Terrace, in my mind, when I think about what Terrace could be, he could be kind of like Corey Davis, right? Like he just got put in a bad situation. He needed time to kind of learn the game more. He's a big, tall guy that's probably going to be good over 12 to 15 yards out, that kind of guy. Corey Davis was kind of a bust for his first few years. He had a couple of 600, 800 yards, but he took a while. And then once they got the right quarterback, because Mariota was not the right quarterback, what happens? Corey Davis gets this amazing finish that we finally get to see. And boom, like that's it. So I think Terrace Marshall is in this boat that he could be like the Corey Davis of the year in a good way, not the bad way, not the injuries. But so yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into a BBM because it might take a second to fill up. Only four, nice. So if you're in the chat and you want to draft, jump in a BBM. Four left to go. But yeah, I agree with all of that. And at ADP 210, man, like literally again, I'll draft him every single time in the 18th round without hesitation. I literally plan for it. I will, if I have 7 wide receivers, I'll draft anything else. I'll fill up my tight end room. I'll fill up my quarterbacks, running, whatever. I'll fill up my other rooms and be like, yeah, that's because I'm drafting Terrace Marshall in the 18th round.
Yeah, they got the best quarterback this class, right?
Yeah. Decent deep ball thrower.
Decent deep ball thrower. They got the best quarterback. They actually have a solid-ish O-line.
Yep.
I don't people get enough credit for actually how good that roster is built outside the wide. People are willing to tout like the Texans roster. I'll tell you this straight out right now: the Panthers roster is better.
Oh yeah,
It's straight up better. So I think the Panthers are going to do a little bit of work. I think we'll be surprised, and I would want to grab 2 of those weapons when they go cheap enough, just to kind of take pop shots because this team is not going to produce nothing.
yeah,
And I do think these guys profile better than Nico Collins, profile better, maybe not better than Mechie, but probably profile better than Mechie coming off cancer.
yeah.
Like profile better than Robert Woods. So these guys all realistically are younger and they profile a lot better. I love Nico, but Nico at 130 is just not the guy right now. And
Yeah.
Terrace at 210, sign me up.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like I was drafting a ton of Nico Collins in his rookie year and his second year, drafting a ton
Agreed.
at ADP 190, 200,
Yeah.
whatever it was last year. I'm all about that. Drafting him at 130. Why? Because he did exactly this 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
What are we doing? We're just saying, and the market is essentially saying that Nico Collins is the wide receiver 1 for the Houston Texans. I'm not so sure that that's true.
I don't think it is either. He's a 6'3", 6'4" guy that is supposed to be a streak runner, but they put him on slants, ins and out routes. He's not strong enough to break press. He's not good enough route runner to really take it above 4 yards. He's slant boy. If you actually watch a lot of his highlights, they're using him so incorrectly. And I don't think that's his fault. I think that's just because how their quarterback situation was built, how their wide receiver room shaped out when, Davis Mills couldn't get the ball, when John Mechie missed the season. I think they kind of had to do that, but nothing in what I've seen goes, they're going to use him. If they make him stretch the field, Nico Collins runs 9 routes all day, then sure, his ADP will pay off. But if he's running slants, out routes, drags, Nico Collins is not going to pay that 130 ADP.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out, but I'm with you on that. We ended up pick 110. We got a rare Jamar Chase going first overall. Not a lot of badge bros in here, not a lot of names that I personally recognize, so might be an interesting room. A lot of times when you see rooms like this, it gets a little wonky. Well, there you go. Tyreek Hill's fallen to 7. That's pretty insane if you ask me. That's a gift. So what are you doing? We're kind of at a turn spot here. What are you doing if you're at the 110? Oh, you're on mute.
I know we talked about Eckler a little bit. I was going to say we grab CD Lamb. I think Lamb is probably one of the safest picks in the draft.
Yep.
After Diggs, he's like my favorite receiver.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about his quarterback. I'm not worried about his role. He had a bad season, quote unquote, but his season was actually one of the better seasons. You got to remember this. He played with a backup for like a good amount of games, and Dak was rusty when he came back. And this man still, what's his stat line? What did he get last year?
I don't know if we can pull it
11,
up
1,200 something yards. He still showed up.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that you're kind of alluding to. He's still improving. Like, I think that was, where his floor is going to be for the next few years, personally.
He had 1,359 yards last year. It
Yeah.
was the quietest 1,359 yards. People talk about CeeDee Lamb like he got 1,100 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. You even earlier in the show, I think you said his ceiling was 12.
Yeah. It's like
So
so like people are talking like he just doesn't do anything. I think his like floor is like 12. Like he's just like a guy that's at the 12 zone. Like he just exists there. You don't get worse or better than CD. I don't think you get much worse than him. I don't think you can get much better than him.
what
Obviously, for 101, you're not taking CD. You take Justin Jefferson.
what are our thoughts here for
Um,
the turn?
I would say just get G Dubs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to buy in on Adams. I think Adams is fine, but I really don't like Jimmy G. And I'm probably gonna get this wrong. I agree that Devontae Adams is likely gonna finish better than Garrett Wilson. It's very very plausible. I'm not brave
Well,
enough to make that bet.
yeah, and with these two wide receivers, I've done this start a few times. I don't particularly love the bye weeks, the stacking the bye weeks on your first two
Yeah.
picks, but whatever. It's not the end of the world, that's for damn sure. And these are very similar wide receivers, in my opinion, as in they're both still improving. They haven't come close to their ceiling yet, in my opinion. I think it's entirely plausible that both of these guys could end this year as a top 5 wide receiver.
So throw me on the second question too. So if you're the Jets, right? Are we people are assuming that Garrett Wilson's always the whiteout. What if Garrett Wilson's the next CD Lamb in a
That's
positive way?
that's exactly what I was kind of
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's literally exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
What
Yeah.
if he's in the slot?
Yeah.
What if he? Because do you trust Alan Lazard, McCole Hardman, Corey Davis in the slot? Maybe Lazard, right? But Lazard's like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", I think even.
6'5", yeah.
6'5", he's a big boy. And he plays well in the slot. But like if you're hiring all these receivers and you want to get the most out of your star first overall, which obviously we've seen the Jets do this. They put defensive rookie of the year out there and offensive player rookie of the year out there last year, and they would have had another one in Brees Hall. So they're going out there just shoving these dudes out, letting them do work. So I think Wilson might be the next CD. And although that won't give you the best ceiling at times, I think that would give you the best upper echelon type of play. Like you're getting 15 to 18 points consistently versus him playing all wideouts. I don't think he's gonna sit on the X and Y routes like outside like everyone thinks he is. I think he's
Mhm.
gonna play over the middle
Yeah, I
on
agree. I think
the
he's going to play almost exactly like CeeDee Lamb does for the Cowboys. Literally, that's kind of what I was alluding to was, yeah,
yeah.
these are very, very, very similar receivers. And yeah, they could, like I said, they could both finish as top 5 wide receivers this season, quite literally. So, I mean, we'll see. And again, like you were talking about too, with Aaron Rodgers' trust. Yeah, he trusts Lazard because he played with him for so long, but realistically, this is by far, not even close. It is by far the best wide receiver on the team, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, it's not even close. Healthy Corey Davis would be the second best at this point, and even then, that's a toss up.
Yeah, what's your thoughts? We're coming around to the turn again here. I mean, if we could somehow fall into Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson, that's always fun. Not very likely, but
I don't know what we're gonna get into. Honestly, this is where I like to take my running backs. This is where I take Najee. This is where I take if there was a chance at Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. We're at pick 34. I think we have a lot of receivers that can come back to us. I don't think there's a lot of running backs that come back to us. So, like, I don't want Brees Hall coming back to me. I don't want Debo coming back to me. I don't want Christian Watson coming back to me. I think like I personally here always take Najee and then I float myself into Amari Cooper, into Jerry Judy, into Drake London, into Terry McLaurin, into DJ Moore, right? Like the names are all there that are identical because I don't want to be in a 4 wide receiver start.
really, I was kind of thinking that's a good way to start with this one, to be honest with you. Just because I take a ton of Najee too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to stop doing that. I don't
Okay.
hate taking Amari here to stack it up with Garrett Wilson as well.
That's fine. I would do that for
Um,
the stack. Let's do
and
that.
then maybe a guy like Keenan Allen, or
I
I could be talked into Najee as well.
If we can get Najee on the comeback, that's great. If we can get Jerry Judy, I would also be good with that. I think Jerry Judy is gonna crush his numbers this year. Um, he his numbers right now, like on my projections, are like 1,200 plus yards.
Yeah, I've been actively trying to take a ton more. Oh, and there he goes. Maybe
Do
this
you have the
guy's in the
double stack?
chat. Oh, he's just stacked it up. Yeah, that's
He stacked
fair.
it up.
I've been actively and purposefully taking a ton more Jerry Judy lately because I was not early and I didn't particularly know why. And then yeah, it was an article actually by Sam Chudery, who was on the show a few weeks ago, that kind of opened my eyes to making sure I get a little more Jerry Judy. And there goes Najee. That's annoying.
4 RBs. I think I went 4 RBs.
Yeah,
All right,
4 RB
cool.
start. I was not expecting that. Where do you turn to here? I mean, I don't
I
love
take.
taking Christian Watson, but and
I
Drake
wouldn't.
London, I
I take
like.
Drake London here. I take a lot of. So I would actually take Christian Watson here. And this is gonna sound dumb, but the reason I do it is because of the way Christian Watson scores points.
I don't hate it in what we're doing, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. Yeah,
We have
I
three we have three, all around guys. We need that 25 guy.
yeah, that was my first lean was Christian Watson and then Drake London. So I'm glad you talked me into that. So and this is a pretty oddball build, if I'm being honest with you. It's I don't know if I don't know if I love Amari Cooper. Maybe we should have went with Najee.
This is what
Now I'm like, oh man, or we should have maybe taken Jerry
Judy there.
Judy, yeah, and then Christian Watson or something like that. But either way, we have that game stack week 17. And, I said it, I think, in last week's show as well, with all of these wide receivers, sets it up for a late QB stack. None of
Yeah.
these players QBs are going super early, so we can set it up late.
So a lot of people always kind of give me crap for like taking Najee there, and I always tell them it's because I already have two receivers, and I'm probably guaranteed my third,
Mhm.
right? So I take Najee there because I'm not guaranteed a running back I like. Literally, like I don't think you like ETN. I don't think you like Gibbs. Obviously, I don't like those two either. So when I get back to me and those are the guys left, then I'm just taking receiver. Like
I have about 25% Najee.
yeah.
I like
So
Najee there too. So
so I'm
yeah,
always stuck in this weird spot, and people go like, "Well, that's just a bad pick." I'm like, "No, it's the right pick because I'm still stuck with three receivers. Doing
yeah.
three receivers at four is probably worse. Going fourth against your, is always going to hurt your overall contribution points on the week to week
Yeah,
basis.
yeah, and you got that high floor running back that catches passes. He should have. There's upside there too with the offensive line absolutely quite massively improving. So and he's not hurt. He was hurt like
The
all
first
year.
half.
He. I'm pretty positive there wasn't news of this, but I'm very genuinely. I think that he had a list Frank to start the year last year.
No, that was actually what he had. There was
Was it
that was his
actually?
yes. He
Okay.
had a
I didn't
list
know if
rank,
yeah, I didn't know if that was like news or not because like he was clearly not right. And that's something that could force a running back to miss a season.
and he didn't miss a
He
game.
didn't miss a game. Yeah.
So
So he was hurt all season for the most part until the second half of the year where he turned it up and he was very, very good down the stretch. So
So
give
one
me
thing I want to
Najee.
point out is that Najee would have been a season winner last year. He
Yeah.
would have been a Week 17 winner last year.
Yeah.
He had like 20 points. People want to point to like Jalen Warren, but here's the thing: Jalen Warren did not outtouch him in any game. Jalen Warren had, I think, 0 to 1 touchdowns last year, and Najee had 24 or 23 to 24 touches in every game in the last 4 games.
Yeah.
So,
I,
like the numbers don't add up to why Najee isn't good this year.
I
The
I
only
am
way they would
about the Najee life.
The only way he would be terrible is if they straight up bench the guy, or the line gets worse and they're hitting him behind the line of scrimmage, and that would just be a like situation of like that's just how bad these Steelers are.
Which is not particularly true, unless Matt Canada just is that bad of a
Which is
offensive
fair, also.
coordinator. But
He is pretty
we'll
bad
we'll
offensively.
see. But what are you thinking here? Couple QBs are looking like they might fall past ADP. Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. Um, I know you like
Also, the other
DJ
thing,
Moore. I'm not a huge DJ Moore guy personally, but
I like DJ Moore a lot. Honestly, I would probably grab DJ Moore here, and see if we can get Fields on the comeback. But because this person, Heat Sauce is likely going to grab his first receiver here. He has 4 running backs. I think that's the way it's going to go.
yeah,
I do think we're going to lose it to. There we go. We're going to lose it
yeah,
at some point.
yeah. I
I
think
think
they might both go. Justin Fields might go right here.
we'll
Maybe not.
see.
We'll see. But I think we definitely need to
There we
look.
go.
Yeah, there he is. And then I think we need to look running back, obviously. Um,
This is what I feel bad about. Like we're stuck with Dobbins. Like we're stuck with Dobbins. We're stuck with Sanders. This is just doesn't feel good. I think if I had Najee here, I would have been okay grabbing a quarterback, grabbing a tight end even.
Yeah, I
Is
don't
Kittle?
disagree. I think we maybe should have
Kittle just got
swapped it.
grabbed. Yeah.
But
Uh, so let's grab Dobbs. I mean, I know Dobbs has had a little bit of FUD on him, but what are they gonna do? Like the Ravens all have FUD all the time. He's still the best running back on the board here, unless you want to grab Herbert and maybe bring back Quentin Johnson down the road.
yeah, I don't mind that, and I honestly would rather go Miles Sanders than
Let's do this then. Let's grab a quarterback here and assume one of those running backs is coming back to us.
yeah. I think that that's easy. If this guy takes okay, there we go. If he takes another running back, even with his next pick, this guy might take at least one. But we'll see where it ends up and what comes back to us here. But
I mean, even if we get Damian Pierce, I wouldn't feel bad about that, right? We're getting him at
yeah,
pick 63. It's like whatever. Um, it does suck that the bye weeks match up to ours, though. That's kind of why I don't want Sanders here because the bye weeks would match up with our other two guys. So there goes
yeah.
Dobbins,
I don't
JSN.
I don't disagree with that, but at least they're
All right, let's get Miles.
isolated. At least they're isolated, positionally.
Yeah.
So we can still bring it back. Plus, we got a little bit of correlation with Green Bay and Carolina in week
Week 15, 16,
16.
16. Yeah.
Week 16. So helps out. I'm actually a big fan of Miles Sanders this year. I know some people are, some people aren't. I kind of got into it with a guy a little bit on Twitter, just a gentleman's disagreement. But I just think that Sanders is going to be that guy. The head coach that drafted him, the running back coach that drafted him, he got signed on the very first day of free agency, which is extremely rare for running back. If we look at who's free agent right this second, decent deal he got. Like you mentioned earlier, the offensive line blinking, you want to miss them getting reasonable, at least reasonable.
Yeah,
Um,
they're not terrible. Like teams look bad when the team is bad, right? Like it sounds like kind of dumb. They look bad when they're bad. No, they look bad because the team was actually just had Baker Mayfield. Like there's nothing you can do with Baker. There's nothing you can do with, who was their other backup, the guy from the CFL or whatever it was, XFL. Like
PJ Walker.
what are you gonna do with those guys? The answer is nothing.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do when you lose CMC and you get stuck with Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Foreman? Not a ton either. Uh, Baker was just really just that bad. I don't think Bryce is gonna be that bad. There's just no way.
No, no. But I mean, yeah, there you go again. Rookie quarterback. It just makes sense that Miles Sanders gets a similar workload that he got last year. Sure, touchdowns might be down a little bit, but I would certainly make the argument that his receiving acumen, like he gets more catches this year in this offense. I would certainly make that argument with Chuba Hubbard being his competition for running back targets. So yeah, I'm a big buyer and believer in Miles Sanders this year personally.
Yeah, I have nothing against that. I think that's okay. A lot of these running backs are like way underpriced.
Mhm.
Um, I take a lot of my running backs here. I live in the J.K. Dobbins world. I mostly live in the Najee world. I think Najee is like such a steal right now because you can get three receivers and then fall into Najee and be like, oh, this is great. I got a guy from round one last year at nothing.
Yeah,
Um, so I feel like Miles Sanders is in this boat. Like I don't. There's not enough for me to hate him. My only thing I do dislike about it, Miles, is he just doesn't tend to finish seasons. He's missed a lot of games just in his career. But at pick 62, like you could build around that. If he was a round four guy, I think I'd be like, hey, let's avoid him. But
definitely.
round six, we're fine. Like
Yeah.
pick 60, you're not a big deal.
Well, and yeah, you don't have to like Najee. I'm 100% on board with that. Absolutely 100% on board with Najee Harris at that pick. Like you said, three wide receivers, and then you go Najee. It just makes building the rest of your roster that much easier to have that running back, especially with a bye week 6. It's a weird bye week for running backs. AJ Dillon as well, but yeah, I have an absolute ton of Najee, and I'll continue to draft him.
Yeah, he's been getting a lot of FUD. I know that like Karain and a few other ship chasing guys are just like super down on him. And they're just being just
They're down on
crappy
they're
on him.
down on all running backs though.
No, they're particularly down on Najee though. They were like calling him like the worst pick of the year, like to
Oh
take, and I'm
yeah,
just like I find that just way above, way like overshooting it because I could tell you about a couple picks right now. I think they're just really bad. Like I think
yeah.
Debo's probably one of the worst picks of the year this year. Like I don't understand why people draft him. I don't.
I like some Debo. I mix in a little bit of Debo just
I,
because he has
I
that
guarantee
potential.
you that Debo's a low advance rate guy. I guarantee it. I guarantee you he'll be a low advance rate guy. He's going to be a guy you want week 17, but he's going to be so bad for weeks 1 through 14.
Yeah,
Same
you
for
might not
IU
be.
to
You
an
might not be
extent.
wrong. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see who starts a quarterback there. That's a big part of the conversation too with Debo.
Yeah. I mean, it's
So
tough.
we're definitely gonna go
Yeah.
with the stack here.
We take QJ. We
Man,
could
Trevor Lawrence. This is
also.
the second time I've seen him drop this
I'm
far, which
telling you,
is
like, there's no reason to
crazy.
grab the guy. There's just no reason. I think we grab
At,
QJ
at,
here for
at that
sure.
ADP, that's nuts. That's nuts. 20 points past, man. I might have a hard time not taking him. But what are your thoughts for the next pick? I don't mind a
Montgomery,
guy that we
honestly.
talked about earlier. Yeah.
I find it funny that my boy James Conner's already gone though. That stings a little bit.
Uh, I did
My
not want.
boy.
I did not want any piece of him, so I'm glad that happened. So yeah, we get correlation with Dallas. We need a
Yeah.
running back. It makes sense.
No, no,
Love
sorry.
it.
I meant not for the pick. I like the yeah Montgomery first. But I was to say the reason I like that side of here, the way we were in. Let's say we would have had we didn't need QJ because we probably didn't. We could have grabbed like Montgomery to Connor, right? And that would feel so much better with Miles because then you have at least a good amount of like you have 3 solid RBs that are going to be the ones on their team, and I think that's fine. But because we have Justin Herbert, like you just grab QJ there. But I think if we
Or
fall in, like
we could have went Sutton as well for the.
I wouldn't have. I think I would
I
have
wouldn't
risked
have
pushing
either.
him.
I'm just throwing it
Yeah.
out there for the correlation, which we might get later with either Mims or Dulcich.
But yeah, I one of my favorite pairings is like the Montgomery Connor pairing. If I'm ever in like this weird hole of like, oh, I got junk RBs, like, and then I get Montgomery like Connor, I'm so happy. Like, all right, cool. I got 2 guys that are the ones that are gonna probably get 8 to 10 touchdowns on the season, and that's all I want.
I'm not touching James Conner if I'm being honest. It's not. I just honestly I don't have much to say. Like I'm not going to throw out stats. I'm not going to. I just have I just don't like him. It's just a gut feeling that I just don't like James Conner. If I'm being perfectly honest, which is completely irrational. Don't get me wrong. I realize that it is, but it's just something I'm not doing. I do have a couple shares here and there. I haven't
Yeah.
literally not clicked his name, but it's got to be certainly less than 5%.
He's not a fun guy to draft. He's not a guy I took at all last year. He was going around 3, round 4. I thought he was one of the worst picks.
Yeah, I didn't take him either.
But the one thing Connor has going for him, and I know people always say, well, he's injured. He's injured. And I'm like, well, you're still taking Mike Williams at like pick 40. So I don't want to hear about injuries. Like people are still picking him. James Conner has actually never missed a season.
Full season.
He's never missed a full season. But even then, he's only ever missed 3 to 4 games per season on his last 3 years. So he's injury prone and it's baked in. It's at pick 80 something, right? Like 86. He's right next to Montgomery. So it's RB 26. And you're getting a guy that finishes above RB 26 when he is playing generally. Even on week to week basis, he's finishing as a top 12 to 15 RB. And fine, like sign me up for that. Like it's a cute no. It's not like great by any means. But if I'm desperate, if I'm stuck with these 2 guys and I needed a third RB, like that's it. Like that's where you pick these guys up. I don't stack them with my Chubb teams generally. I don't stack them up with like my very heavy teams. I'll forfeit my third RB. And to top it off, Sam Berman did a great research. Your flex over 48% of the time is your running back.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be there.
I
It's not your
saw
wide
that or read
receiver.
that.
It's an amazing thing, and it's true. If you ever look at your teams, like on the week to week basis, these like random plotter type guys. Up and then top it off, Connor's a plotter that can catch the ball. So he's above average plotter that you're paying for nothing. I can't guarantee you that all the other guys plot after him are going to catch balls. That same argument I make for Montgomery is the same argument I make for Connor. Both miss 4 to 5 games a year, and they just get enough done. It gets a couple touchdowns, and that's why I love them both together because they're the exact same player, just different age group.
After we make this pick, I'll dig into what my kind of take is on James Conner. But what are your thoughts here? I mean, I don't mind this with the Chargers stack, especially their run defense has never been good and shouldn't be this year. Don't love that it matches bye weeks, but it brings it back with the stack.
Yeah, I'm
Ugh.
okay with that. I haven't been taking a lot of P Ryan with the news that Dalvin Cook might end up there, but I do think in this team we kind of have to. I've also been taking a lot of Damien Harris. I feel like Damien
Yeah.
Harris is such a smash these days too.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
probably
And
prefer
that's
Harris and just avoid the weirdness.
You want to do that? Let's do
Yeah,
that.
I
I
would
don't.
much
I don't
rather
hate
prefer
that because
Harris.
I was gonna say Harris here for sure at the 111.
Yeah,
But if he doesn't get there, because this
we
guy could certainly
yeah,
look running back.
he gets it
Um,
there. He gets AR, and then he gets Dak. Oh
oh
wait,
wow,
that's interesting.
yeah. So now what are your thoughts here? I'm okay not taking P Ryan as well. We could go a little Charbonnet, like it's a little different. Backup quarterback if we want. This is kind
I
of dead zone area.
I would probably grab our Pat F here. Pat F. I would also consider Daniel Jones. Yeah, I would say just grab Pat F. I kind of want a
Eleven
tight
Pat.
end. Tight ends are a little goofy to have at times, but when you're in these weird spots, you should be grabbing them. We're in like I call like the low zone where everything just kind of feels like a lull. So I want the best player on board. I think that's Pat F.
I don't hate that.
Right.
This is definitely a dead zone in the draft for me, in my opinion. I
Based on what
don't.
we have, right? If we didn't have a quarterback, Kirk all day, Daniel Jones all
Oh
day,
yeah,
Gino all
yeah,
day, whatever. But we have a QB, so
yeah,
like, who am I taking, right? The answer is I'm not taking any of these guys. I'm taking Russell Wilson in the comeback, right? Like that's what we're doing. We're gonna grab Russ, we're gonna grab Mims, right? We're gonna get that stacked up, whatever. But like, I don't see a reason to grab Kirk here. I don't see a reason to grab like Gino. We have full faith that Herbert's the guy, right? Like we have to. We did buy him at pick 50 something.
yeah.
Um, our
I
running backs aren't great, but I feel like we can make up with this with like a 6 RB team, kind of a 2 6 7 3 kind of situation, and feel good about it because we have 5 receivers in our first like set of picks,
yeah.
all
Oh
alpha
yeah.
level kind of guys.
We definitely want to go. I think six running backs with this. Two quarterbacks is max for me with a guy
Easily.
like Herbert.
Yeah.
But quickly on the James Conner, I'll touch on that. For me, it just
Yeah.
boils down to the take good players on good offenses, and I think Arizona might be the worst team in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. Honestly, is that I honestly legitimately think they might be the absolute worst team in the NFL and be picking first overall. So, I'd rather take a good player on a good team than an okay player on a horrible team, is kind of where
No,
I'm at with it. But
I mean, I got no disagreement with that. The only thing I will say is the worst teams still put up offenses,
oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
Um,
Damian
it's
Pierce last year.
yeah, Damian Pierce, exactly. He only thing that he didn't do was get touchdowns. All right. Um, do we think they tank? Maybe they could try. But
Yeah.
even the tanking Dolphins still had relevant weeks, right? Like people still wanted Waddle, people still wanted all these players. The only thing I have is that James Conner might be the best weapon on that team. I'm not a Marquise Brown guy by any means. I think Hollywood
Really.
Brown is like cool, but we talk about a guy who misses games. Hollywood Brown and Rashad Bateman like miss all the games in the world. They both came from the Ravens. Something is in their water. Whatever the case may be, those dudes do not play seasons ever. Ever in their career have they ever really finished or been more relevant? And I can't even guarantee that Marquise Brown's relevant back-to-back games.
Yeah. You're not wrong there.
Right.
I still think he's the most skilled player on that offense, though. Like just skill for skill.
I think Connor's better, like straight up.
Really.
Connor in his entire career has shown that he's a better player. Um, he's not, and he's like I said, he's not like the sexiest dude, and he's not the flashiest guy. But being flashy is like was what led people to Chase Claypool. Like, right? Being
Yeah.
flashy is what led people to like Mike Williams and oh my god, he's so much better than Deontay Johnson. These kind of like these are why we're kind of being stuck in these zones with these like Marquise Brown's like very funny at best. And I think he's a very good two. I think he's a good player at one on any team. But if you're talking about like you think he could go out there and be a one without Kyler, go out there and be a one with Kyler even, you're asking for a lot. Hopkins came in and dominated targets immediately. While Marquise Brown was there, like James Conner still went out and had the nuts of a season.
Well, when he was off, though, or let's make this pick here.
Oh yeah,
So we got scooped on Russell Wilson. That made no sense to me for that
of
guy,
course not.
but
I still think we
whatever.
can grab the weapons here. I still think we could do the bringbacks. But I'd also be okay with Khalil Herbert, weirdly enough. If we need to grab like some weird running backs.
I was thinking Jarek.
Yeah, I'm okay with Jarek. Jarek's fine. I think Jarek's a little priced up these days, but when you need somebody, you kind of just need them.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And then we can bring. I'm thinking bring it back with
Dulcich.
Greg Dulcich.
I think Dulcich goes though. We have 4 picks in between us that have 0 running backs. I think he's gonna go.
Yeah, maybe with Chig and Schultz. We'll see. We'll see what happens
Yeah.
with Dulcich. I wouldn't be, completely butthurt if he does get hurt or does get picked. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
that's, I think, what makes sense for what we're building here, as long as he's there, and he'll be there.
Double running back, that makes sense. This is where this guy's going to live. He's probably going to be a 2772. I'm pretty sure Bonnie is going to be a 2772.
Yeah. Yeah. All of his wide receivers by pick 85.
Yeah, it's a 2772. There's no
Yeah.
way. He grabbed his double quarterback, so he's not going to grab a third. I don't think so.
Yeah. What was I going to say before that?
You're
My
talking about
God.
corner.
Why do you take Greg Dulcich there?
I'm telling
Why?
you.
That makes no sense. We
We
could
can
take
grab Chig.
who?
Chig.
I was thinking Schultz, but what are your thoughts there? We could do that. I don't have a ton of him.
Yeah, I take either or.
We can
They're the
either
same
bring
guy
it.
to me.
We can easily bring it back. Chig's the same guy as Dalton Schultz. That's pretty. Dalton
They're the
Schultz has
same.
done it.
No, Schultz has done it, but I think the situation at quarterback is what throws me off. Tannehill has been proven to get things done. I think Tannehill does play the season this year, or at least most of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think that's why I'm leaning. So basically, it comes to they're the same guy. It's because I just think the numbers are probably going to be the same at the end of the season. I do think Schultz is a bit more talented. He's probably the best weapon on his team from the receiving side. But the quarterback, man, it's not like I love Stroud or anything. I'm not.
Well, it is easier to bring it. It's kind of easy to bring it back with picking a Tennessee player as opposed to a Houston, because you basically can't bring it back taking Schultz there. We can bring it back taking Chig there. We can take, I like Tank Dell late. We could take Devin Singletary, we just talked about. So it's easier to bring it back if we do want to, because they play twice in the fantasy playoffs, these two teams. So
I also would have considered Carr. I know he got taken right now, but Carr would have been another pick because we could have grabbed Carr and then grabbed Rashid into Juwan Johnson, the next set of picks too, and just build ourselves an outside stack. It wouldn't have added up a ton, but it would have been at least something, considering that all the quarterbacks are basically going to be really bad now. We could get Jordan Love to mix for a Christian Watson, I suppose, but
that's what I'm thinking. And then
feeling
maybe
good about it though,
Well, and then maybe Jaden Reed as well late if we want. I like Jaden Reed quite a bit. I've been drafting him a ton, but yeah, it's kind of the quarterbacks kind of dried up quick there. We should have saw it coming, I guess, when there was that huge, stacked up at whatever pick we were saying was the dead zone, and we literally said, yeah, if we didn't have Herbert, we'd be picking a quarterback, and then they just kind of shot off the board all at once. So that's just one of those things that kind of happens, I guess. But what are your thoughts now? We're 9 picks away, another turn. We could look at Singletary on the bring back, Jordan Love.
I would probably grab Singletary, because if we don't grab Singletary, the guy that's in between us will.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And
772. He's going to grab his RBs.
We were just hyping him up. I love Singletary. It is a bring back situation. Jordan Love goes. That's interesting. So now quarterbacks
these
just
address rooms are super goofy. But it's fine, right? We're playing. So here's the cool thing about this team too. It still plays for top 10,000, right? It has enough receivers to do it. Has the right running backs to do it. It's a pseudo anchor build. So it's played for a top 10,000 space. The bye weeks may look goofy, but they're really not, considering that we have basically the receivers. We have 3 receivers in those weeks to still play. So we're fine. And by week 7, Quentin Johnson will have himself a nice role in his team.
Yeah, exactly. Especially coming off the bye, week 6, week 7, he might really kind of take off, especially if that incoming Mike Williams injury happens, which everyone's pretty confident it probably will.
Apparently not, man. It took a while, but everyone was drafting him in the top 40 picks and forcing him and just hyping up the Chargers. And I just don't get it. I got burned by Mike Williams last year again too, and I told myself, why am I taking this guy? And I kept saying, week 17, this is where it's at. This is where the man didn't even make it to week 17. I think he got hurt twice before the season got there, and I should have seen it coming. That guy has only had 1,000 yard seasons one time.
Yeah, and one 10 touchdown, double-digit touchdown year, and then everyone just wants that to come together, which is, I get it. I would love to see it come together too, but
it's not possible for him.
Not really happening. Yeah,
we could get Devin here. I guarantee you, the guy between us is probably gonna grab Algier here.
Probably Jerome Ford, who's just been. I was taking him so much early.
Let's take Singletary here, and let's take Mims on the comeback. I think
Yeah, I mean, I could realistically be talked into any of these
I
wide
would also just
receivers.
yeah, Jalen Reed's another guy I'd be pretty interested in too. Jalen Reed kind of walks himself into like a open role.
Yeah.
I want to take Taekwon. A couple weeks ago I would have. Now that we know that like Hill's basically the guy there. See, I told you it's your out year. We knew this was coming. I kind of want Mims. I think Mims is
Yep.
gonna steal that third role.
Oh,
Traded up to
100%.
grab him.
I have
Um,
I have probably 25% Mims. I love Mims. I think he's at
yeah,
least going to grab that third wide receiver
yeah.
and potentially wide receiver 2 on that team.
Russ reads the room really well. The only problem with Russ last year, and I think we saw this, was that he was heavily leaning on Cortland Sutton when he didn't have to. But it was a habit that he had to do because think about it, Jerry Judy missed part of the game last year. Tim Patrick was out before season start. KJ Hamler was gone for half the season, then came back. There was no report there. I know people like to point to that one pass where KJ Hamler was open, but like if we were to be if we were to sit there and say KJ Hamler is like on the field, do you trust him? I guarantee you the planet would have said, nah, man, you go to Sutton. Right? Like you go to Sutton. I don't care how open he is. There's just like, so I think that backfired last year when they just relied on a guy that shouldn't be relied on. Sutton should be the two, maybe even the three. Uh,
Well, and what who does Marvin Mims replace? KJ Hamler.
Replaces
Like
KJ
that's
Hamler, Tim
yeah.
Patrick, hey,
Yeah.
even Sutton.
Yeah. Any basically like Mims has got, good speed, 4.3 speed, downfield type of a threat. Russ throws a really, really good deep ball. So that's what I see happening quite a bit with Marvin Mims, especially early until he kind of gets a role and it gets a little more defined after what we both agree is after Jerry Judy. Um, and then, yeah, I think he has every potential in the world to end up the season, and that's where we're drafting him for. Weeks 15, 16, especially 17, to have that role. And we both kind of seems like we both agree that he could be at least the wide receiver 3, if not the wide receiver 2.
He's one of the two. And people are gonna say, well, he's not as tall as Sutton, but like, dude,
Yeah,
half the receivers on the outside now are 5'10", 5'11".
yeah, I'm
You
not
know,
worried about that.
I can't think of many 6'2" to 6'3" receivers that have a good career right now.
Yeah,
Like so, I think Mims can do any of these things. He's gonna take somebody's job. If it's either Tim Patrick's, coming off an ACL tear, it could be Sutton just not being good and getting traded by week 9 or week 7, week 8. Like who knows? But I will tell you this much: I'm not stoked to think that he won't. So I want the stack, I want the player, I want the guy I got traded up for. Give me all the above.
yep, I agree. What are your thoughts here? We do need definitely some quarterback, wide receiver help for sure. We
You can
got
get Kenny P.
we could do Kenny Pickett with the Fryermuth. And I'm all right with that, to be honest. And just a 2 quarterback build. We're obviously going to be leaning on Herbert, 16 out of 17 games, most
Yeah.
likely.
I think
So
Kenny Pickett's gonna run a little bit more this year, so I think there's gonna be a chance at this.
yeah, and
That
that I agree with that for
year
sure.
2 leap, they get AR, and I know people are down on Allen Robinson. I'm not telling anyone to draft Allen Robinson, but Claypool really sucks, man. Like let's let's not point out how bad Claypool is as an actual player in the NFL, right? Cute, he has a funny name, Mapletron, whatever, right? Like, but he's essentially a bad player. He's unquarterback friendly. Allen Robinson's actually a quarterback friendly player. Think about all the guys he's played with and made them relevant,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
And
and
he's your
they're
three.
they're probably going to use him properly, like how he needs to be used at this stage of his career, which is in the
Yeah,
slot as a slot possession receiver. That sounds like what they're going to use him as, and that's what he should. A lot like Larry Fitzgerald towards the end of his career,
perfect.
right? Where it's just you're the possession receiver, but you're not on the outside. You're underneath guy. They got Pickens to stretch the field. Deontay's a fantastic, just all
Route
around
runner.
receiver.
Him and
Yeah,
Pat Frymouth are going to sit in the end zone just trying to catch touchdowns,
yeah,
right? He's
yeah,
a touchdown catcher. And that's okay. Like, we had high expectations for him last year. And to top it off, Stafford just sucked last year. The O-line sucked. Stafford held the ball too long. He relied on one guy and one guy only.
yeah,
People like to point to Allen Robinson not doing anything. I will point to the entire team not doing anything. There was
yeah.
no run game. There was no O line. There was no wide receiver 2 or 3 or a tight end. It was basically Higby and the Cooper Cup show, right? And it was the guys that were 4 yards out and over the middle. Stafford's elbow and told us, in the preseason, and I didn't believe it. I thought he was gonna get past it. That he is not able to go deep.
Yeah. What's your thoughts here? I like Kenny G
Gainwell.
quite a bit.
Yeah, I think Kenny Gainwell is the way to play. I think
Yeah,
Kenny Gainwell here, Jeff Wilson, my other guy. I still want to take Jeff Wilson. I know you're not too high on him, but I think Kenneth Gainwell's a fine pick here also.
I'm just a massive Kenny G fan. Um,
I am not,
yeah,
but I don't believe that Swift and Penny, like both of them, are going to survive seasons. Right? I
yeah,
don't think either of those guys are going to finish it.
and there's honestly, I think even with those guys healthy, I think there's potential that Kenny G just leads this backfield. That's within the realm of possibility to literally start the season week one. You know, they gave the ball to Kenny G over Miles Sanders in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So they clearly want to work him into the game plan a little bit more. It's a year 3 for him. He's still a young guy. And he was taking touches away from Tony Pollard in college. So I like Kenny Gainwell quite a lot, and I'll be taking him a ton until that's another guy I probably could have put on this list for tonight's main topic there. But yeah, I'll be drafting him all the way up to I don't know 16th round Kenny G. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Like I
free.
said, this team feels a little awful a little bit, but I think we bounced back really well. We got the Sanders, Harris, the Montgomery, the McKinnons. We got a lot of touchdown guys, like possible. Uh, RBs all have a shot at touchdowns as long as they're on the field, or as long as they
Yeah,
can get on the field. We
that's
just
a
got to
that's
get
a
our.
big reason I like drafting these two running backs, Damian Harris and David Montgomery. There's high touchdown potential for those guys,
Oh
which
yeah.
brings in a high floor week to week for your running back room. And then as long as you've got a couple, high ceiling or maybe Gainwell, Jerick McKinnon, Sanders, maybe even these guys are high ceilings potential as well. But as long as you have those guys and then your wide receivers are in a good spot, I don't hate it at all.
Um, I think bringbacks we could do for fun. We can grab Noah Fant to mix up against that Week 17 Pat F situation. We do know that they spread the ball over a ton at freaking Seattle Town. Some tight ends always stealing something, and I'd also consider even like our seventh receiver to be.
I don't mind Dell. Dell brings it back against. I guess we already have
I'm not too stoked on Dell
Singletary.
because he might just be like this random type of guy. I kind of want to get like Terrace actually. Jokes aside, I think I want to get like Terrace. Even if he's like a single off, I don't think every pick has to be correlated. Some of these one offs are nice to have.
Yep.
These like, hey, like who can actually break out? So I would probably grab Terrace here. I would probably grab and then like Noah Fant or even grab Ferguson to kind of go over our CD a little bit more to get some of it. I think we force quarterback stacks a lot when I like to force sometimes team stacks. You know, I
Yeah.
just think this offense is good. The quarterback is replaceable, and we've seen that a lot. Quarterbacks are replaceable a good chunk of the time. In this case, Justin Herbert's like Herbert. He's going to do Herbert things all day.
Yeah. We're putting a. I mean, I think it's fine to do it, but we're putting a heavy kind of. I don't want to say burden, but we're having Justin Herbert kind of carry this team, to be honest, which is okay. I
So
don't mind that. But
so
what's your
let's
thoughts here?
so you're oh yeah, I would say let's grab Terrace and then we'll grab Noah Fant.
Okay, I'm down with that.
So something that like to talk about, like when you have an elite quarterback, you have to believe that guy is going to be your guy. So
Yeah.
here's a stat line that I did last. This is actually from my article, so it's going to be a little premature. Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Like, how many total points did Joe Burrow contribute to your team if you had both of them?
If you have both
If you had
Patrick
both
Mahomes
last
and
year,
oh,
yes. How many
I,
how many
oh,
points did you get last year out of those two? If you combine them, how many times did Joe Burrow actually help your team?
probably 2 or 3 times.
You're right. It was about 3 times, not
Yeah.
including bye weeks. We're just talking about if they're both in play.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, the week that Joe Burrow would have helped you on Patrick Mahomes' bye week only got you 14 points. So it wasn't even like an exceeding number. Your total amount of points you got from Joe Burrow was like 39 points.
Yeah.
Like you got
I believe
39
that.
points. You
Yeah.
paid so much for Mahomes, and you got 39 on Joe Burrow, who was like a QB4, QB5 on the season.
That's why you're like this whole bully QB sort of strategy that you see sometimes is
Could be good
madness.
for a playoffs. Could be really good for playoffs. I'll give them that, right? But Justin Herbert, if we're taking him at this point, no matter who our second quarterback was, unless it was a rusher, what are we going to get out of it? Right? Quarterback drafting this year is so much smarter than it was the last 3 seasons. I
Yeah.
used to get away with Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert teams at round 6, round 7, right? all
Well,
day.
even where we saw Trevor Lawrence and last week or the week before, I was on with Bradley Stalder, and we got Trevor Lawrence, same thing, about 20 points passes ADP. Like whether you're in or out on Trevor Lawrence, like you can't say that that's not an auto click.
Yeah.
We could have done it on this team, but we're not going to with Justin Herbert because of
Yeah.
literally
Because
what you just said.
what do we
And
gain out of it? 25 points?
exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. If he was in our case with Bradley, that was our our QB1, so it was
Yeah.
no brainer. It was
Yeah.
an easy click. But yeah, when you already have a quarterback, it makes zero sense, especially if it's an elite quarterback, which I think pretty much anybody would agree that's what Justin Herbert is. So
So we take him
yeah.
here. We think he's elite. We think he puts up his 4,700 yards, 35 touchdowns. Then when, Kirk Cousins might fit a few games there, like Daniel Jones could have maybe fit a few games, but like that's it. I don't
Mhm.
think anybody after would have. Russ would have been maybe a possibility because I am betting on Russ, but realistically, I have to say I'm getting 3 games.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Three slightly higher games, like so a total of like 37 points. And that's because I think Joe put like 35-point games, right? Like that happens. And
Yeah.
of course, Patrick Mahomes can't do that. Patrick Mahomes put up 26. I'm like, oh no, I lost 11 points that week. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So that's exactly what we're saying here, and everybody should be saying when they're building their teams is, if you're already locking in, like what is Herbert going to average, right? Like
twenty,
then who,
24.
like you said, yeah, who cares if one week, so and so puts up 30 points and you're getting 6 more points? That will not make the difference at the end of the season. Trust me, it will not. It might make the difference in the playoffs, but we're not really, we're not thinking like that
Your
at
your
this
advance
point.
rate's so low at that point anyways, you might not even
Exactly.
see it. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think this team is cool. I do miss that Najee pick. I still have a little bit of regret on that. But this
I
is still sick though.
Yeah, I
It's
agree. I mean, we do have this game stack here, but I agree now that it fell the way it fell, I agree that we should have taken Najee there over Amari Cooper, but it
we
is
got
what it is.
we got the good game stack. And here's the thing, as Christian Watson is not my guy. So this is the second stat line I'm gonna throw out there. Deontay Johnson and Christian Watson had the same amount of contribution games, right? Contribution games. What do you think the point difference was on contributions?
Between who? Sorry, Deontay
Deontay
Johnson. Ooh,
Johnson and Christian Watson.
probably like I don't know, like 1.7 points or something.
The total was 7 times the amount of points. Christian Watson contributed. If you're talking about on average, if we know the floor is 10 points per game, right? Hey, your flex needs to get 10.5 points, and that's your contribution game. Deontay Johnson gave you 7 points above that 10.5 point line.
Hmm.
Christian Watson gave you 50. So he gave 7 times the amount of points to your contribution than Deontay Johnson did. So,
Hmm.
like, as much as I'm not a Christian Watson guy, if I have to think my fourth receiver is going to beat CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper, then I want Christian Watson there,
Hmm.
right? Why not? Like, take the guy that could get you 25. Why do I need another 15-point guy when I
Yeah.
have three 15-point guys?
Yeah, I
So,
100% agree with that. Yeah.
so our team built out that way. Christian Watson, deep shot guy. Quentin Johnson, deep shot guy. Terrace Marshall, deep shot guy.
All
I
of
think
them.
that's even Mims to an extent, deep shot guy, right? So four
Yeah.
of these guys work with our three possessional all around players.
Yeah.
So I know Deontay Johnson missed a few touchdowns and et cetera last year, but on average, when you talk about his contribution games, he had contributed 7 points above the flex line on your entire season, while Christian Watson went 40 to 50 points above that line in like 4 games. And he didn't even play like the entire season. He missed a couple games. It was a rookie, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
if we know he's a stretcher, which we have to assume he is, right? We don't think he's going to be a route runner.
We know for sure he is. Yeah.
Yep. We know that when he does contribute, he's going to push Amari Cooper down. He's going to push Wilson down. He's going to push CeeDee Lamb down.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
he's
stoked
gonna
about
he's
that.
gonna live in our flex a lot of times too.
Exactly.
So even when he does kind of floor out or whatever you want to call it, like if he does hit a 12-point floor, good chance he ends up in our flex. But when he hits his ceiling, he's probably our wide receiver one.
Yeah. We needed a
You
spike
know?
week guy. So
Yeah.
although I am a little, we can sit there and be a little bit peeved about the Najee or how things fell. It's
Yeah.
not like we built poorly out of it. It's not like we took like DeAndre Hopkins and was like, we got a fourth 10-point guy this week. So
Yeah.
it worked out.
This is a weird build. I'm not gonna lie. But the thing that I like about it is it's probably very, very unique. That's for
Very
sure.
unique. It's stacked. It's not a team I normally would take,
No,
but
not me either, particularly. But
that's why we're doing it together, right? We made a
yeah,
really funny team, and I do think this team is better than it comes off.
I agree. I agree. We'll see where it ends at the end of the year. I'm gonna jump in
Ooh.
and name this sucker.
It's gonna be super funny that you're gonna have all these like random lineups.
Oh, it's good though because it forces me to do things differently. This is actually probably too close to what I do, especially in the running back room.
Mhm.
I probably have that exact running back room on another
Okay.
team, to be honest. But um, we'll see.
James, I see the James team.
Oh,
James is
Eagles,
hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love
that was a
James.
good one. That was a good one. Do you want to check that team out quickly or what?
Yeah, I watched that episode too. It was definitely funny.
Oh, did you?
Um,
Nice.
yeah.
And
I
what?
follow James, whatever he does, because James is my boy. And funny enough, when we were in the Canton last year, we drafted, but so what happens was we like high fived and then we like left because we went to separate places. And he's like, "You want to draft?" I'm like, "Sure." So we were drafting on opposite ends of the airport. We got 101 and 102.
Oh wow.
He barely missed playoffs on that one by like 5 points or something ridiculously low. And it came down to his 102 pick, which was JT, and I took CMC.
Oh,
Um,
brutal.
it, but it was still cool. We still scored hella high. We finished top three between the three of us. That was cool. Between the two of us, it was like really funny. And like he's
Nice.
my buddy.
Yeah, he's original Canadian, so we get along well.
Oh man. Okay, that makes a
But
ton of sense.
yeah, this is the team we built. I actually love this team. I think it's great.
Equals with equal players.
Like we
What?
just talked about with the quarterback situation. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big drafter of Eagles this year. Um, their playoff schedule, I think, is just very, very juicy, right for the taking. So that's a big reason why. But let's get this out of here. So yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. I really thank you. Appreciate the time, hour and a half. That's pretty much where we like to keep the shows, keep the episodes. So, like I said, appreciate you coming on. Anyone in the chat, if you could hit the like and subscribe button for me, get this out to all the other best ball peeps out there. I know there's tons. So, just still trying to grow the channel. But Davis, remind the people who you are, what you're about, where they can find your work.
Oh, great. Yeah. So Davis Peng, find me at Peng's Picks on Twitter. I removed the FF last year because people made fun of it. I still write for Fantasy Six Pack. That's where my buddies are. That's where my crew is. That's where I do all my work. And then I catch us on Tuesday and Thursdays with Hope. We do the Road to 150 show. Both of us, spend about an hour, hour and a half on that too. Not as much, actually, more close to an hour. We don't go an hour and a half too often, but catch us on our journey. Watch us change our minds. Watch us argue, debate. She makes fun of my old guys, and then that's basically it.
Nice. Well, yeah, again, appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the time. And like I said, hit that like and subscribe button on your way out with Off the Schneid. We always say my motto here, if you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be right. And I think we're not afraid to be wrong in tonight's draft. So come back in a week. We'll see you next Wednesday. And